So today I'm so lucky to be joined by two very popular faces around Keller, Joe Harris and John Wolosick. These two are no strangers when it comes to the geotechnical field, and they are really making a name for themselves. Whether they're in the office or in the field with their team, giving a presentation, out volunteering or coaching, these two have so many stories to share. So Joe and John, welcome to the site report. We're so happy to have you with us. And I know you're both not only just colleagues, but you're also really great friends. So I'm really excited to hear what kind of stories you have to share about each other and just really learn about your experience, at Keller. So I know you both sort of started through, I guess you could say, an acquisition in a sense. So I do want to talk a little bit about that, how you came to work at Keller. Then I want to sort of dive into some of the misconceptions that may be floating around out there, maybe clear some of those up. Also hit on what it means to be a family within a family, and then how you really handled that work-life balance, because I know both of you have been here for such a long time. I imagine sometimes family gets in the way, extracurriculars might get in the way with work. So how you really kind of adapt and adjust and learn to focus and balance both of those. So Joe, I guess we can start with you. John, feel free to chime in, embarrass him if you want, say whatever you want. But Joe, just tell me a little bit about how, I guess, that acquisition sort of worked and how you joined the Keller family.
That was circa 1998. Um, After a little dance in '96 with potentially being acquired by Hayward Baker, part of Keller at the time. For 2 brief years, we'd actually worked or been owned by a overseas competitor who has roots here in the U.S. Suffice to say that wasn't going very well. And unbeknownst to us minority stockholders, Drew Bright and the board was working behind the scenes to acquire us as former Denver Grouting. Not only did we ask for 10 or 12 certain things that we felt like we really needed to make the leap. The beauty of it was we not only got those 10 or 12 things, but 10 or 12 more. So everything Hayward Baker and Keller said they would do, they followed through with, and then some. And by far and away, it's been the best thing to ever happen to me personally and professionally, and certainly our group as we've grown from a few $1 million branch to multi-million dollars and have expanded. So we are a Keller family. The beauty of it is we're left to operate regionally, like we're a smaller company. But as soon as we need resources from Keller, it's a email or phone call away, and we can get everything at our fingertips in a matter of minutes, if not days.
And John, I know you sort of had a similar type of experience to Joe. Is that right?
Yeah, actually, Joe and I worked together prior to that when Denver Grouting was owned by Nicholson, and I was a Nicholson employee for almost 10 years. So we had worked together in the early 90s and knew each other from that time. But in 1996, Nicholson was acquired by a company called Rodeo in out of Switzerland, and the Nicholson brothers were fired, let go, and so our group down in Atlanta here decided we were going to leave because we were pretty loyal to Joe Nicholson in particular. So we talked with at that time the Hayward Baker Keller folks, Jim Henry down in Tampa, and we decided we were going to make the move. And so in November of '96, there was about, I don't know, 6 or 8 of us that decided to jump ship, so to speak, and go to work for Hayward Baker. But in the end, Nicholson really wasn't interested in maintaining their office in Atlanta. So Keller purchased all of the assets from the Atlanta office for quite a bit of money, actually. And so we switched the whole branch over, and it ended up being about 25 people. And so we actually got a new job the very first day we were in business. It was a hospital project in Chattanooga, Tennessee, a micropile project. So we were off and running at that time. So it was November '96, 26 years ago.
Wow, that's pretty crazy to hear
It
that
was crazy. Yeah,
you
we had to
started like that.
meet with and negotiate with the rodeo guy who was from Switzerland, and and the president of Nicholson, whatnot. And, Keller wrote a pretty big check, and we were employees at that time. So it worked out really well. And like Joe said, it's the best thing that ever happened to me by far. Obviously I'm here 26 years later. So, my career has been great during that time. So I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I can imagine, I mean, 26 years, that's a good amount of time. So I'm sure things kind of started off a little different than where they are now. Obviously, we had Hayward Baker that no longer exists because we are Keller now. So what did those, I guess, early days look like for both of you compared to kind of how things have transitioned maybe once Keller did take over and, kind of within the past 10 years?
So, it was there wasn't a big change initially because it was our same group that I'd been working with for 10 years. Steve Buckner and Ron Triplett, and we hired Peter Newfer on, and we had our superintendents and drill rig operators and pump operators, et cetera. So as far as the execution of the work and the daily work, it was similar to Nicholson, but it was different. The differences were more of a work-life balance atmosphere. We had a lot more meetings where people got together and discussed, what was going on with the business, et cetera. It was more of a team feeling and effort, and it was a big change because we were very far from the corporate office down in Atlanta when we were at Nicholson. They were union, we were non-union, and so we didn't really collaborate much. So there were a lot of coordination and team meetings and efforts and focus at Keller that we really had before. And there was also a real good blend between the accounting side and the engineering side. I had never had that before where we were so attuned to what the results were on our projects. I was used to finding out if we made money on a project, maybe the next year, but certainly several months afterwards. And with the British accounting system that we have here, we're really on top of that, and we're able to respond very quickly if there are problems and address them before the project gets out of hand or done for that matter. So that was a big change and a very positive one.
Joe, what about you? Anything that's been a little different or kind of, major change along the way?
Probably the biggest benefit is, and I've got a saying here for our guys, if only Keller knew what Keller knows. And I remind my guys with that. And on any given week, our guys are reaching out across the country and sometimes across the globe to get technical support, because why do the grind alone when there's somebody else inevitably within the company who has done it before, will overnight you? It might be a tool. We've got guys jump on the plane within 2 hours of fielding a phone call and on site the next morning provide technical support. So the single biggest benefit is certainly the network we've got. It's available 24 hours a day, basically. We all have each other's cell phones. I can't tell you how many times I've called John personally, brought him in to help coach, guide, mentor some of the up and coming superstars within the group. So that part of the business is a luxury that I'm not sure everybody else has in the industry.
I think that's true. I feel like I've even seen that. I mean, I'm not out, in the field a whole ton, but for the times I am out there, it just seems like everybody is so willing to do whatever they can to get the project done, really putting their crews first. I mean, obviously you want everybody to go home safe at the end of the day because the ultimate goal is to, think safe, work safe, go home safe. But it just seems like just the fact that they kind of put me up there with their crew too. I think that means a lot. That means a lot to me as well. And I think that goes back to also how, when we talk about Colors, a family within a family, we have our local offices, but we are worldwide, we're across the country. I mean, how do you think that affects your day to day and just the people that you've interacted with, kind of whether you see that, whether you tell people that?
It's a big plus, we were, like Joe described, if you run into a problem that you don't know the answer to, or a project that may be slightly different than your previous experience, you can make a phone call, Joe said. And we have a lot of guys who are very good at like earthquake related stuff. So we would give a call to California if we have a project in Charleston, for example, that has a big earthquake component to it, et cetera. And the older guy, uh, and having been around for a long time, I get calls almost every day from some branch, that is looking for help in some regard. I mean, yesterday I got a call from our Houston office. I also got a call from our Baltimore office. But every day I get a call with people asking for advice or, help in some regard. And so that's really what I do these days. I'm semi-retired, and I'm enjoying it. I'm going to keep on doing it because it's been great. I'm able to offer the benefit of my experience to, as Joe said, some of these upcoming superstars that we have around the country, and it's a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying it.
What John's not telling you, though, is part of the reasons people reach out to him every day is, one, to hear his big booming voice, and two, to get the joke of the day.
Oh, the joke of the day. What's that? We got to hear that.
We'll save that for a different podcast. One of the things that, again, I really appreciate about Keller is the opportunities that are presented. If you show up, keep your nose clean, do your job, learn from those that have been here a while. You can kind of write your own career path, and there are different avenues to take. You're not stuck in a cubicle, you're not stuck in a box. There's all across Keller where somebody has paid their dues, and something happens. Perhaps it's a wife who wants to move back to her hometown back east. And I can't tell you how many times we get the email where somebody has relocated. Sometimes it's at the request of upper management. Other times it's the employee themselves requesting a change. And more times than not, it's a position is either available or created for this individual who has worked his tail off and is recognized. So we've got field engineers that like the field so much that they want to become superintendents or general superintendents and live in the field. You've got other cases where field engineers have turned into unbelievable business development managers, or project executives, or even higher. So the progression opportunities are there. You show up, do good work, you'll get recognized for it.
That's important to know, because I think sometimes, I know we go to a lot of these career fairs at colleges. We talk to these students who are looking for a job. Some of them may get a little shy or turned off because they think they have to come in with 5, 10 years of experience under their belt with a certain title, a certain job they want. But I think that's really kind of not true. You can kind of just come in and really move around. And if you have that motivation and you're willing to learn and willing to talk to people and have mentors and have these resources, I think you can, just what you were saying, Joe, you can easily climb the ladder. Do really, it's kind of limitless.
I wanted to mention too, Lauren, that uh, I get involved with recruiting a fair amount, and
Mhm.
one of the our way of doing business with recruits, with young engineers in particular, if we're recruiting from a college or something, is you really don't learn what we do in school. Okay, it's the field operations, the even the design work, construction management, et cetera. So when we get hire a new field engineer, we put them in the field. They have to go out, work in the field. Typically, it's a 3-year plus stint where they're traveling around. They could go to different branches. They often do. They see different types of work. They'll see a micropile job, a vibropure job, a jet grouting job, a soil mixing job, deep foundations, caisson drilling job, et cetera. So we cycle them through a training program, and I think it's just absolutely invaluable for their future growth, et cetera. They'll spend 6 months in the design office doing design work for design build projects. There'll be an assistant project manager working on bids, et cetera. So we've got just scores of young people who are out traveling around the country learning our business and getting tremendous training. And I think that's a big strength here.
I was a laborer. Then I moved up to cages. Then I moved up to grades. Then I moved up to foreman. Then I moved up to assistant superintendent, and now I'm a superintendent. If you can work hard and you really want to change your life financially, this is the place to be. I promise you that the gains you will make in your life, discipline and financially, is limitless. Look at me, a young man, and 8 years ago, I was not the man you see today. I'm a way greater man, and it's because of Keller.
So now I sort of want to switch gears a bit and talk about some of these misconceptions that may be out there about Keller. I know some people, with a large company, it's kind of hard to make sure everything accurate is getting out there. So, we have a lot of different people working in a lot of different areas. So sometimes you hear things that aren't true and you can clarify it with one person. But, a couple other people, other clients, they may still, be hearing the old news. So what are some of those misconceptions out there that maybe you both have heard that you've clarified, or that we should kind of tell people today, hey, that's not true. Like, we only do work on, $2 million jobs. Like, absolutely. Like we gotta pause there. We gotta clear this up. So what are some of those misconceptions that maybe both of you have encountered or that you've heard, and kind of, take a step back and clear those up a bit?
Like you mentioned, one of the things I know that our competitors often say is, oh, you don't want to call Keller about that small job. It's too small for them, and we do a lot of small jobs. We're just as likely to do a job less than $50,000 as we are one that's more than $5 million. I actually saw a job the other day, a small foundation project that we have under contract that was $5,700, and our competitors always say, oh, don't call Keller, they don't do the small jobs. Well, that's just not true. We do more small jobs than we do big jobs. And we have that strength. Like Joe mentioned, we can call on other branches. We have a ton of equipment. But our equipment is both for small and large projects. But we do more small jobs than we do big jobs. And we competitively bid them and win. We're a low-cost producer because we wouldn't be in business if we weren't winning these jobs. It's if you've got to be low bid, then you've got to be operationally efficient and excellent, and that's our mantra. So that's what we try to do, and that's a typical one.
To that end, John, you hit the nail on the head. Here in the Rocky Mountain region, I've said it time and again, we've solved $1 million problems with a $10,000 invoice. There's boring and tunneling contractors that inadvertently pull out a little more material than they intended, thereby creating a hazard, propagating sinkhole to the surface. I can't tell you how many times we fielded a phone call at 6:30, 7 o'clock at night, and literally have been on site by midnight, filling the void in the surrounding area and off site by the next morning for a few $1,000s, thereby saving the taxpayers and the contractor tens if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. We pride ourselves in emergency response, small jobs, and run of the mill based business. I've always felt it's a great training ground if you have that consistency in some of these more finesse projects where you gotta satisfy a homeowner or a business park owner and cleanliness and everything else, and that translates on your bigger projects where you're trying to leave a good impression. Our work doesn't have to be dirty and messy, so that's why I like the small jobs on occasion.
Joe, I remember that project that you all did in like a convention center that had carpeting down or something, and you guys would move in the early evening, lay down plastic, and actually cut little holes in the carpet, drill through the slab, grout underneath, and clean up everything. And the next morning, they go on with their convention that they got going on. So you guys are really good at that.
And That's the Dubuque Grand River Center, Dubuque, Iowa, not too far from my hometown there. Leaving that impression can get you work later. We successfully bid a rehab at a hockey rink, literally a mile down the road from that this year that went really, really well. So again, leaving a lasting impression, keeping the job site clean, accommodating their schedules, will pay dividends many years down the road.
We did a project in Mississippi at a casino where the lobby was settling, and I went inside and I told the guy, well, we're going to have to drill a bunch of holes through the slab here. And they had like a rare South American wood called bubinga or something. And the manager looked at me like I was crazy. He said, "Do you know how much this wood cost?" What we ended up doing was we very carefully drilled through the wood, and then we bought dowels of bubinga, and so we grouted underneath very carefully overnight. And actually, the casino was open 24 hours, so we had to work in certain sections of the lobby and keep the traffic flowing. And then we grouted through the slab, and then we would take the dowel of bubinga and stick it in this perfect 5/8 inch hole, saw it off, sand it down a little bit, and put some poly over it. And we saved his bubinga floor and re-leveled the whole place. They had about a 3 inch gap under their front door that animals could crawl through, etc. And we pumped that up, leveled everything up, and that was 10 years ago or so, and they're still open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
And everybody won in that situation except for our superintendent, who got beat up at the blackjack table that night.
But that's something else too, that work-life balance I think we talk about. Again, I know you guys have been in the industry for such a long time, but some of these folks first starting off, I think sometimes they may run into some tough situations with how do they balance work, how do they balance family, how do they go and make sure they're at their kids', sporting events. I'm sure both of you have kind of experienced that when you were first starting out in your careers, and now you've gotten to that point where you've worked hard, you've put in the time, so now you have more time to, do your extracurriculars. But do you remember what those early days were first like and how you sort of went through balancing, maybe the really long hours at work, but still trying to have time for your family and friends?
I guess I was a bit of a workaholic for many years, and I did travel a tremendous amount, but I was able to coach baseball, youth league, and men's baseball for over 20 years, and really enjoyed it, mainly on the weekends, uh, because I did travel a lot during the week. But I was in the 26 years I've been here, I bet there haven't been 3 weekends that I've missed coming home. So the company's always been very supportive and allowed me to, fly back on Friday night, and I was at the baseball field Saturday morning and Sunday afternoon, whatever. So I wasn't the best at that, but I did manage to coach baseball for over 20 years. I also am involved in a bunch of car clubs. I really enjoy vintage cars, and that's something that I've tried to do more and more, mainly over the last 10 years or so, because baseball was such a big part of my life prior to that. But I haven't been the best at work-life balance, but the company certainly has, put up the money to fly you home to make your commitment. So that's been great.
Yeah, likewise. First off, I think we have to shout out to our field crews. We've got some superintendents that have worked with me for over 30 years that still travel, live out of a suitcase, 40 plus weeks a year. And some of that's by choice. We've got enough hands on deck here that we can rotate shifts out of town. Some simply enjoy it. They love the challenge of the work we do. And then they continue to work out of town. Others, life happens, children happen. We've got a project manager that's got 5 kids under 7 years old, and he puts his time in. We work with him. He helps his wife, and he hasn't missed a beat. But that's flexibility on our end and his likewise. I too, after first 12, 14 years of my life in the field, transitioned into the office, have an appreciation for that. But I also then got involved a little late, coaching my son, and after he graduated out of the football program, I was asked to come back And again, life work balance. I helped a local football league and board of directors, again, primarily weekends and late nights, and coach football. And I think those things translate. You need a little bit of break, be it hiking, skiing, which isn't for me, but it is for others, or giving back to the community and kids. And as John or Jim Henry told us both, John, you hang around kids, it'll keep you young for life. And
Yep.
so I've enjoyed it, and now it's fun watching some of my young project managers get involved in coaching soccer and this, that, and the other. And Keller again is accommodating. They understand that, and we do a good job of finding that balance with our field crews and office crews alike.
Yeah, and I imagine too that both of you sort of act as mentors to these, employees, whether they're in the field or in the office. I mean, I imagine they look up to you. They've seen the work and time that you've put in. I mean, are there any specific moments or maybe employees that stand out to you that have really looked to you for guidance over the past couple years?
We've got a bunch of guys. We opened a new office in Birmingham, Alabama, I guess about 3 years ago, and we've got a young guy there, William Wright, who had gone to Auburn, and then he ended up going to work for our Houston office, and he and his wife had twins, and like Joe said, life happens, and they're far away from home. And we were considering opening an office in Birmingham, and talked to him about it. And he was like, "Boy, I would love to move, home closer to family with young kids." And so we were able to get William set up and started a very successful office in Birmingham. He's doing a great job, and he I met him when he was a student and recruited him at Auburn, and then he would call me when he was in Texas. Then we were able to get him over here for about 3 or 4 months to do some training in the Atlanta office at one point. Then he went back to Texas, and so I talk to him fairly regularly. He's been very successful. He's a real smart guy, and we've got a lot of current field engineers that I've hired and mentored, and some of our young project managers and engineers as well. So yeah, there's quite a few, quite a few.
I've worked alongside some of these people for multiple decades, and I graduated from the pack. And one of the things Keller again identifies is, and this relates to coaching, is putting guys in the right position, play to their strengths. You don't want a quarterback playing right tackle, protecting Tom Brady. So you find out what their strengths are. You have to have conversations with them, and again help them, morph into their career path that best suits them. We've got some great design engineers, by their own admission, when you probe them a little bit, really don't enjoy the day-to-day project management and the things that go along with that. So accommodating them and putting them in a position where they're happier and even more productive and successful has been the key here as of late. And it's always a works in progress, because some people, you got to pull that out of them. They want cradle to grave everything, and quite frankly, they've got to recognize and look in the mirror. I'm really, really good at this, but I really don't like that part of it. And I think, again, our coaching has helped me put guys in the right position to be successful. But there's guys I look at going down the hall and realize, my gosh, it seems like I just hired him and he's been here 12, 13 years. And he's on national committees now and technical leads within Keller. And that's a real blessing to see these guys that came out fresh out of college, had no idea what we were doing, did their stint in the field for 2 or 3 years, morphed into the office, and now they're mentoring these young field engineers. And so it allows us to take a step back and kind of monitor that without micromanaging it. And they've quickly become the mentors now in 10, 12 years. It's fun to watch.
Yeah, we're saying guys, but the thing I wanted to mention
Yeah,
is when I look at our cadre of field engineers, it's about 40 or 50% women these days, and they're doing a heck of a job. They're out there, in the mud, and they do great work. They've got great attitude. So guys and girls, men and women, whatever. But I would say a large percentage now that we have of our field and project engineers are women, and they're really doing well. They're doing super.
I second that. We have some of our best interns in the summer, our field engineers from the School of Mines and other colleges, and they certainly hold their own and then some.
I'm going to put you both on the spot. You might have to think a minute about this, but I mean, you guys work friends, outside of work friends. I'm sure you have a ton of stories to share, some appropriate, some probably that can't be shared with the public. But I mean, were there any certain work sites that you guys have been on together, or any certain, I don't know, team dinners that you've gone to, or anything outside of work that really kind of resonated with each of you and really thanked Keller for, meeting the other person, or anything that really stood out?
I think you had a project that was in Vale, or I think it was in Vale. Did we go to that Marshall Field's house together or whatever? Do you remember that?
I probably did before we indulged at dinner, and I probably washed the memory away a little bit. But
Anyway, I'm from Atlanta, and so he's like, I really need you to come out and look at this job. And so I get on a plane, fly out there, and it was in the evening. And then the next morning, it's snowing. Okay. And I mean, like in Atlanta, we have snow once every 2 years, and, it's an inch and it goes away. It was really snowing. So I figured, there was 4, 5, 6 inches on the ground, and we were going to have to travel, 100 miles or something. I figured, this was off. So Joe like picks me up for breakfast in his truck, and he's like, okay, we're going. And I was like, okay, I guess so. So it was snowing so hard you couldn't see. And so we were on I-70, and he's a much better driver in the snow than I will ever be. And so we plow our way through, go out there in the mountains. It's snowing like crazy. We look at this project, get a few photos and talk it over with the owner, etc. And so we're heading back. We've been out there all day, and now there's about 10 or 12 inches of snow, and the highway department wasn't really keeping up with it. And we get closer to Denver, and the traffic was all backed up, and they had like one lane open or something. So Joe goes, "Don't worry, I know this shortcut." So he pulls off onto these local roads in the mountains where there's 12 inches of snow, and we just kept plowing along. There were a couple times I thought we were going over the edge, but he was a very good driver and very experienced in the snow, and drove us all the way back to a great dinner. But if that had been me, I would have been over on the side of the road, with the back end of the truck sticking up in the air, trying to call a tow truck. But that was quite the day.
I don't know the first time I met John, but obviously his passion for the industry and his personality and his storytelling certainly drew me in, and I kind of feel like a kindred spirit with John. We've shared some hearty laughs to, when John, he's usually the one that has you in tears, but every so often you catch him right, you can get him taking his glasses off and wiping a tear of laughter as well. But so I've enjoyed our friendship. We've had some moments where pranks went too far. I think John ended it. He's a much better pranker than me, to the point that the powers that be said, "Okay, that's enough, boys." And it still makes for a good story every time we get together at a project manager conference, and the young kids just shake their head. But we'll leave that alone. And I enjoy Keller, and it's because of guys like John and all the people before John and the current administration, if you will, that keeps me coming to work every day. I enjoy it immensely.
We also dressed up as ZZ Top at one company meeting, as you recall, at one time, and had full costumes with the beards and the hats and everything. And I've got some photos of that, Lauren, if you're interested.
Yeah. Oh, you send them my way right after
I will
you.
send you the
Yep.
photo. But that was quite the evening as well.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Good thing we knew how to lip sync.
Yeah. Exactly.
Great. Well, I really appreciate it. And I think a lot of people do. I mean, a lot of people know what Keller does. We're doing the foundation work, but the goal is to really show people what Keller is behind the scenes, what the name is, who are the people that are making up our company. So I think this is great just hearing from you both today, the stories that you had to share, just the recruiting work that you've done, the mentoring of our employees, always wanting to get them to that next position. So I mean, I think this is super helpful. And I just really appreciate you both taking the time to talk with me today and just kind of share your personal story in hopes that maybe this can inspire somebody out there listening who may have heard of our name, but now they're going to go click that apply button, on our website to sort of start their career with us. So
Great. Thank you, Lauren. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Take care,
Lauren.
Joe.
Take care.
And that about wraps it up for our show today. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you were able to learn a little bit more about the people who make our company so great. And as always, make sure to follow us on social media on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And you can always visit our website for more information at www.keller-na.com.